Welcome to the CEO Tech Talks podcast, where vision meets impact. I am your host, Ambreen Ahmed. Each episode, I sit down with exceptional leaders who are shaping the future of business, technology, and transformation. This show is about more than just success. It's about clarity, purpose, and those bold decisions that light the way forward. Join me as we uncover the insights, challenges, and breakthroughs from today's most inspiring voices. Leaders who are redefining what it means to lead in a rapidly changing world. This is CEO Tech Talks. Let's dive in. Today, we're exploring the intersection of AI robotics development and healthcare. My guest is Mike Shvenderman, a leader at Pembroke Sterling, a holding company focusing on healthcare acquisitions and AI robotics development. Thank you for joining us, Mike. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into it. Can you share a little bit about yourself and Pembroke Sterling?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So my background is cybersecurity. So I worked around federal spaces and nuclear cybersecurity, and then some commercial, and then at a federal bank. From there, started a government contracting company that specializes in healthcare. In that, we explored and learned a lot about the gaps in healthcare and hospitals, and especially in remote areas. And thus, Pembroke Sterling came to fruition. And it's a holding company with a focus on developing tech using some of the modern tools, AI and robotics development, and data points from all the different places we've worked at to be able to create machines that can assist in rural hospital centers or rural hospital areas. Yeah, that's where we are right now. We are seeking to do that through strategic acquisitions and some native ground up kind of establishments of teams as well.
Well, that sounds exciting. There's a lot of pivoting and shifting going on. What does a typical day look like for you?
So we do operate, I still operate a federal contracting company, so it's a lot of client management, right? We want to provide healthcare services and operational support services for our federal hospitals to the best of our ability. So it's making sure our people stay happy, and then doing research in terms of good acquisition targets for us, and then where healthcare tech is going as a whole. Where is AI going to be able to plug some of the needs in 10 years, and trying to get ahead of it now, and forming our holding company to be able to already have been in business for many years, doing something that's going to happen in 10 years. That's the goal. So trying to predict the future.
And how's that going?
Sometimes good, sometimes bad, always hectic.
So what major shifts are you seeing in this industry right now?
Well, I think the biggest problem with healthcare, and I think it's pretty evident, is just there's a lack of providers, just as a whole, not even in rural areas. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's a very cumbersome process to become a doctor, for example. It costs a lot of money, you take on a lot of debt, and a lot of, my opinion, is a lot of tech salaries and other avenues have kind of gotten up to that level of salary. So I think now people that are going into healthcare are really doing it because of their personality and their mission, and not so much for the financials. So you're seeing less people go into it. And so I think that's the biggest issue. And then when we start looking at rural hospitals, I think we even, go down further and say, okay, there's really going to be that problem of lack of providers is going to continue to grow more and more, because you basically have to convince someone to go out to a rural area to serve. And if it's not mission driven, it's a very hard thing to do. So I believe that, this is where AI and robotics can really play a role. Some of the administrative work that could be taken off providers' plates, paperwork, back office type of stuff, can really benefit healthcare as a whole.
Okay. So how has this industry trend impacted your business and the growth strategy?
Sure. Well, business, so at the federal level, healthcare business is very good because it's very needed, and the lack of providers makes it even more needed, right? So, and then from a holding company perspective, what we're seeing a lot of right now is just people retiring out of their businesses. So you could think of home healthcare or even medical manufacturing. We're very keen on medical manufacturing. People are retiring, and the next generation kind of doesn't want the company. But the company is providing very valuable services. As an example, we're looking at potentially an acquisition for a medical plastics injections company. And they're doing plastic molding, but they're doing it for like operational plastic. So they have something called a clean room. So all the plastic is in a very sterile environment. Plus, you can use some of these pieces during a surgery, and it's very specialized, right? So things like that, in my opinion, like have to continue for healthcare to stay afloat. And so you need people to kind of step in and continue to run these. And so that is the primary focus of Pembroke Sterling, is to find mission critical companies, connect them, get the data points, and streamline and make them more accessible.
Wow, that sounds like your aligns with your mission then also for wanting to be in this field.
Yeah, my wife is a physician or a hospitalist. She's a physician as a hospitalist, and so I hear a lot of the complaints, the issues, and then I work across, I think, 10 to 12 hospitals now, and so we just see the problem is that, like, you don't have to like seek out a problem. There's a lot of just problems, and I think tech can definitely step in and solve a lot of them.
Agreed. So what's working well for you right now and what's been frustrating?
Yeah, well, what's working well is there is a lot of very interesting companies that I think align and would be a good strategic acquisition for us. As an example, I think, rural pharmacies. I'm looking at rural pharmacies and the automation of a pharmacy. I think all the different pieces of being able to have a robotics run a pharmacy from a pharmacy tech or even a pharmacist perspective are there. So, when pharmacies have a lack of providers, it's definitely something that can, at this point, I think can be covered up to like 80% with AI and robotics and really make it a lot more efficient. So I think what's working is finding all the right pieces. They're out there. So it's been quite fun to look at the different companies and say, okay, the data sets here can really help us improve this through some language models or a custom application, and everything's evolving so fast. So it's a very fun field to be in. So I think, all of that is great and it's very exciting. From a frustrating perspective, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been in M&A. You kind of go through 500 deals to find one good one. So that's always frustrating. You're dealing with brokers, third parties. Some people are not very honest with their financials, right? So when you start digging through the books, that can definitely get a little bit frustrating. But I would say encourage anybody to healthcare, AI, and robotics. Those three things. If anyone's like looking for a career change, one of those or all three is, you can't go wrong. I mean, it's definitely the future.
Okay. So within your business, what metrics are you most focused on improving?
Well, for the hospitals we work with now, definitely the credentialing and onboarding. A lot of times that's out of our hands. Sometimes that's on the federal side to kind of improve that process. But there's a lot of things that we have improved on through automation internally, because when you have a limited amount of providers and it takes 6-7 months to get someone onboarded, there's a very good chance that provider will drop out and go somewhere else, right? Because they're so needed. They don't have a problem finding a job. So all that back office administrative streamlining is definitely something.
Where do you want to be in 6 to 12 months with Pembroke Sterling?
Yeah, I mean, I think 6 to 12 months. It's an aggressive timeline. Let's see, how aggressive do I want to be? I would like for us to have a manufacturing acquisition done. I do like plastics a lot just because it's very common in hospital settings and just in medicine. It's beyond everywhere. So I think plastics injections manufacturing, I think included with maybe a couple of smaller home healthcare agencies, that'll give us enough kind of data points to assist with those services as well. So 6 to 12 months, I would say maybe 3 acquisitions done. And then, maybe 3 to 5 years, I think we should be in 2 to 3 years, we should be in R&D. I think there's enough grants that we can start with. I've considered private equity loosely to kind of help fund some of the R&D, but I think we should be able to have like a robotics product out within 3 to 4 years easily to be able to hit market spaces, assuming the acquisitions go well.
Okay, well, that sounds like a nice timeline, 3 to 4 years, from 6 to 12 months to 3 to 4 years. If you could solve one major challenge today, what would it be?
I think assistance at hospitals, at your like CNA, like nursing assistant, medical assistants, techs, a lot of people that mostly do kind of back office things that maybe aren't necessarily customer or patient facing. I think those gaps are easily with some of these kind of advancements in technology. And of course, the idea is not to replace people, but there are areas where it's very hard. Like no one necessarily wants to move out to these areas, but there's still populations that need a good medical office to go to. So I think that's short term, like a good goal for us.
Do you think this is an industry-wide issue or more unique to your business?
It's industry wide. I mean, healthcare, there was, and I think there still is, there for a while now, there has been programs such as like bringing nurses in from overseas. There's an issue there with like the educational background and credentialing aspect of foreign degrees. Sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not. Just depends on, the hospital. But I think like, I don't see a scenario where like the amount of people going through medical degrees are going to catch up to the need as the population gets older and older. I think more and more diseases kind of pop out and more people need to be taken care of. So it's definitely not a solo to us. I think it's just nationwide. There's a healthcare problem.
Agreed. What you're doing is just phenomenal. How many people are thinking of this, right?
So, if you get a good baseline of healthcare out in rural areas, I think there's a trickle down effect to just the health of the country. And we're in this super exciting position where the tech has evolved. I mean, AI, well, we know AI now. I mean, AI in 5 years is going to be completely different than how we see it now. I mean, in 2 years, it's going to be very different, maybe a year. It's just so quickly developing, and the ability to develop robotics, basically I think of it as AI is the brain, robotics is the rest of the body, right? So the brain is already developed. The body kind of has already, the tech behind developing the body has already kind of been there. It's just improving and improving at scale. So just combining all these things and, ideally would like to just do all of it in-house. So I think, the manufacturing aspect is pretty key for me. It's going to be a very exciting next decade.
So the robotics piece of it, I've seen robots replacing humans, or tasks are being replaced by robots for people to do what then, right?
A lot of the stuff, in my opinion, where these robotics and AI can come in handy is it gets rid of the non-medical stuff. The stuff that really like you don't want doctors doing, you don't want nurses doing. You really want them to focus in advanced medical, right? If you don't have to deal, if you're 30% of your job is doing administrative work, and now you don't have that, you have 30% of that given back to like, you could do your own research and development. You can expand your own knowledge base in medicine, right? So I don't think of it as much as a replacement. There'll definitely be a paradigm shift to like just a different workforce. And we're kind of seeing it now, but I think there's a lot of panic about like, well, what are people going to do? And it's in no one's interest for people to not have jobs, right? It's not in the interest of the nation for people to be unemployed. There's going to need to be training centers. There's going to need to be adoption, but like my daughter is 2.5 and I hate this, but she already knows how to like open a cell phone and go to a YouTube app and find her show, right? So, people are growing up with this stuff. So like the younger generations, it's just going to be like using AI to write something is going to be the equivalent of like using Microsoft Word, meaning like you would never be like, oh, I'm going to handwrite. I'm going to do this in Microsoft Word and then I'll save it and I'll email it, right? So it just becomes a part of your everyday, and then you move on to do other things that, in my opinion, are more beneficial than administrative work, right? So again, I don't think it's going to be so much of like replacement. That sounds very harsh of like, oh, I'm getting replaced. I think it's just going to be like, oh, hey, your job is just going to adapt. You're going to have to pick up a couple new skills, and you'll still have a job. It's a little bit different. That's my opinion. And I think AI has played a great deal in how we do a lot of stuff at the company level, where another thing I think that's important to note with these developments is you're being given the tools and weapons, so to speak, to be able to really do a lot of stuff on your own, whereas before you really needed the backings of a large corporation because you have so much knowledge at your fingertips. You have, ability to write, price, do your own R&D through these amazing tools. So, it's a change, but if you kind of tune into it and learn it, it's a huge advantage, I think, for people because you become so valuable because you can kind of compete with a large company, right? To a degree, because AI automates so many things that normally a corporation needs 10, 15, 20 people on payroll to do.
How are you finding these companies that you need to partner with or acquire?
It's a combination of manual searches and then I have like a little custom app that will kind of go through the internet and find me opportunities based on the criteria that it knows I'm looking for. So that helps a little bit. AI most definitely helps with a quick glance at, a balance sheet, P&Ls, profit loss reports, just financial statements. I still go through them after it gives me a review, but it does point out some things that normally would take me longer to dig through and find. For example, in 2022, there's a $35,000 item on this balance sheet, and should be talked about when you talk to the broker, right? Like little things like that where it's like you can do it yourself, but it's time consuming. So it saves a lot of time at that preliminary level to do M&A. And I would say that's kind of the major things. And then when looking at a company, using some language models to just ask it to do some research on like, where is this industry going? So like plastics manufacturing, where has it been? Where is it going? Because I'm very much like a generalist, so I'm not like a specialist, which is good and bad. But I guess from a good perspective is I don't get bogged down into like, oh, I know how to do plastic manufacturing. And everything we look for like a solid veteran operating team that we can just add to. So from that perspective, it helps kind of do the research on like industries. So where is plastics projected in 20 years? Like what are we looking at globally? What are we looking at nationwide? And then dive into and give me a report on plastics specifically in the Northeast or something like that, right? So all that, it can write a report for you, do a very clean report. I trust it. I still trust but verify. But yeah, all these things, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, you have so many tools that can really expedite and enhance your ability to really find a good business.
Mike, thank you for joining us and sharing your expertise. To our listeners, if you'd like to learn more about Mike and the work being done at Pembroke Sterling, please visit pembrokesterling.com.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining CEO Tech Talks. I hope today's conversation sparked new insights and inspiration for your own leadership journey. Until next time, stay inspired, stay visionary, and keep leading with light. Brought to you by Neura AI Consulting.